Oh, there we are. Hello, everyone. I believe I'm on the screens now. How are you? Hey, can we hear me? Can we see me? Am I here for everybody? I should just check that. If somebody could just give me a thumbs up. I can see, Helen, that you're here. Can you hear me okay, Helen? Before I start going into saying hello to everyone. Yes, all good, loud and clear. Oh, perfect. Thank you, Valerie. Thank you. Good, good. I always get a bit worried that you can't hear me or see me before I can start. I can hear me. Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, lovely to have you here, everyone. How are you all? Hope you all had a lovely Easter. Oh, sorry, my head there. Just get myself comfortable in my chair. Okay, so let's go to the top. Let's see who's here. Hi, Bonnie. How are you? You have this, but you haven't used it yet, Bonnie. Oh, no. Well, hopefully we can change this for you. Hopefully I can inspire you to put it out and have a little go with it. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Beverly. Hi, Sue. Hi, Hazel. And there's Helen and Valerie. Hi, Jean. Hi, Marion. Crafting It So from Gateshead. Hello. Lovely to have you here. We also have got Karen as well. And Sandra. Lorraine. And Chris. Too much chocolate. So took one for the team. Very good for you, Sue, because do you know what? I didn't really have any chocolate. I didn't have an egg. I'm not really a chocolate person, to be honest. I did have hot cross buns, though, on Good Friday. They are a must for me. But no, I'm not really a chocolatey person. So I didn't really miss them. Stephen had them. My husband had eggs as well. But they can eat as much chocolate as they like around me, and it really doesn't bother me. Now, if they had a sandwich or a peanut butter sandwich or hot cross bun, then there would be 50 cups if I didn't have a share of that as well. But hopefully everyone had a lovely Easter. Our weather actually really played ball over the 4 days, particularly yesterday. Yesterday was lovely. I was out in the garden yesterday, and we've done the tour of a few garden centres as well, which is a favourite thing to do. Kathy Grimes, you just eating the green egg. Very good, and I hope you enjoyed it too. Bread and butter pudding, Sue. Oh, yeah, anything bread related. You know, anything bread related, and I'm there. Hi, Evelyn. Hi, Patricia and Tracy. Yeah, this is a really cute stencil. So it's so nice to have everybody here. That's great. Right, I shall get going. Actually, I'll just show you initially. I'll just remind you of Lisa's pick. It's there on the screen already for you. If you're new to us, you may not be familiar, but it's only recently, I think it's probably 4th week, it might be 4th week now, that every Monday morning that an offer is on Lisa's website. It's called Lisa's Pick, and it runs through all the way to the following Sunday. So you've got a whole 7 days to take advantage of this offer, or while stocks last, because there's some offers that are just so good. I don't think they hang around all that often. But this week it's the fabulous zipped bag, which Lisa has shown you on her lives. It's now available on its own. So if you want to buy a second or third to fit your stencil brushes or your inks for traveling, if you go to craft stays or craft days away when you're sort of traveling out from your craft room, then the bag is now available to buy on its own. It's on at a price of $12.99, which is usually $14.99, so you get a nice little discount there. I don't have one to show you. I don't actually travel. I only craft at my desk, though, to be honest. But it's a fabulous storage desk. It can be found on the front page of Lisa's website. So I'll just bring my phone in now. As you can see on the slide there, it's the same on a desktop, but I always shop on a phone. I don't know about you. It's always handy. But you just need to click on the link, click on the picture there, and it will take you to the page where the bag is on its own. And if you actually look, if you're a bit unsure or you haven't seen Lisa demo this live, then there are a few pictures there to show you the construction of the bag on the inside. You can either have it as a full open bag like this, or you can put dividers in. There's little holders here to put your stencil brushes in, or makeup brushes. You know, it doesn't have to be used for craft at all. There are dimensions here as well, so look that up if you're unsure about it at all. Say it's £12.99. It's reduced from £14.99 at the moment. You see there, because I live in Ireland, I actually have the prices in euros as well. And actually, if you are here from overseas, if you're ever unsure and you want to shop in a different currency, there's a little thing at the top of the Lisa's website here, and you'll find it also on the green banner on her desktop website as well, if you're not using your phone. So I'll just go back to the front page. If you touch Lisa's logo here in the green bar at the top, it takes you back to the front page. But also, if you want to shop in a different currency, you have a little drop down menu here, so you can either choose to have your prices in the Great British Pounds, the GBP, or euros, or the US dollars. So you can swap those. So if I just click onto US dollars and then click back into the zipped bag for you, the price is now shown alongside the sterling price, which obviously, Lisa being in the UK, that is always listed. But it also tells you here that it's approximately $16.37. So if you're ever unsure and you're shopping overseas, then you can always change the currency there. So that's a useful thing. So that's Lisa's pick of the week. And so that runs while stocks last, or until Sunday night at 11:59, so midnight. Right, today I'm stenciling with the Floral Vine set. It's a cute little A6 set, actually. You'll see here, if I just bring out the embossing folder, it's a nice, lovely little set. But just because the embossing folder is A6 size, it doesn't mean that we're losing any of the quality or any of the finesse in the design. The design is still relatively large, because if you can see there that the actual design fills up a lot of the 6 set. We also have the die. If I show you, you'll get a sense of the size of this now, seeing the die. So just because it's designed on an A6 size, it can be used on other shaped and sized cards, as I've shown today using a DL card. Now, my favourite way to go is usually taking any of the stencils or the embossing folders, regardless of what size, whether they be 5x7 or the small A6. I like to put them onto a square card usually, but I've changed things up a little bit today, and I thought this would work really well on a DL card. So again, it's just showing you the diversity and just how adaptable Lisa's designs can be. So yes, it's an A6, but it can be put onto a DL card. So that was the first thing I wanted to just let you know. Also, what I'm using today for the sort of the matting and the layering and the thrones here, I'm actually using a Festive slimline set. Now, Lisa is great at giving us the slimline dies to mat and layer and give various different decorative frames for a DL card. We can get the DL cards. We can either cut an A4 piece of cardstock to be 20 centimeters by 20. Oh, actually, let's take that off of there so we can see the full screen. And I'll pop that one up here. So you can either create a DL card by measuring an A4 piece 20 centimeters by 21 centimeters, or you can buy your DL card blank. And as I say, Lisa has a good few slimline sets that give us the chance to mat and layer onto those with the same fabulous quality that we're used to with seeing the circle dies and square nesting dies, etc. But also I want to show you that although this was launched as a Christmas set, the only real Christmassy thing about this, other than the packaging, are the 3 holly leaves and the berries. So take those away, you can use this set all throughout the year. This set has 8 dies, so I'll just show you. It's quite an inclusive set actually. It gives you lots and lots of mats and layers. So if I just show you initially, we have the larger outer die here, which gives you the circle decorative edge. Then we have 2 mats and layers that will sit in the centre there, and I've used both of those for the grey layer and the one that I've stenciled onto. And then if you choose, you can have this decorative panel which gives you this crisscrossing in the centre. You don't have to use this, as I haven't today, and as I say, discard the holly leaves. There is nothing festive about this at all. Ideal for men's cards because it can give you a nice plaid or checked background design. So say nothing festive about that at all. 8 dies, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4. The remaining 4 dies allow you to cut out the decoration. So if you wanted to, you'd keep this as a festive set. And obviously you have the holly berries and the holly leaves that we can die cut. And we have 2 dies to cut out this bow here. Can you see that? There we are. The bow and the little internal sort of button that would sit on top. So we can cut out the dies, the bow like this, and I've cut this in 2 different colourways. So again, this whole sort of demo is just really reiterating the fact that a lot of Lisa's products can be used right across the board and not necessarily as the way that they've been described. Obviously, Lisa has to name every single set, so this came out at Christmas and we've got the Christmas packaging, but do remember it can be used at any other time. Then just a quick recap of everything else I'm using. I did use the sentiment strips for the craft stamps to add the sentiment here. And I will also possibly show you the possibilities of using the tatty words, but any sentiment can go on this that you may have. Again, I don't know how many of you make cards and then put sentiments on later to gift the cards as and when's needed. I think that's quite a nice way to store little made cards. If you have to make one in a rush, and obviously you have to put the sentiment on straight away, which I know many of you possibly will do as well, because I do. Okay, let's get some stenciling done, shall we? I'm just going to bring in my Ultimate 2. I shall use the Ultimate 1 in a little bit, I think, because I want to show you how these stamps actually work. Separate that. So I have my Ultimate 2. I have my Magnetic Matte, which, if you remember right, was last week's pick. So hopefully you've got that if you haven't already on its launch. So I'm going to get the stencils out for this. Now, this floral vine really is something that can be adapted to anything and use any colours on it. I've gone quite pastel, actually. I think I was quite, I don't know, I was inspired to be light and bright and airy. And around at the moment, there's an awful lot of daffodils, so I'm liking my yellow at the minute. So this stencil set has 8 stencils in it. Now, this packaging actually tells you the number of stencils that are on here. If it doesn't tell you on the back, then generally Lisa puts the number of stencils on the back, but you need to count them. I keep a spreadsheet of all the sets that I have. I've got quite a few. And I like to put on there how many dies, how many stencils are per set, because particularly with dies, and some of the smaller ones, they got lost so quickly, don't they? Or they get caught behind other bits of packaging. So the layer that I'm stenciling onto is one of the mattes and layers from the Festive Slimline set that I've showed you. It's the smallest of the dies, and then I can matte and layer this up onto the corresponding layers like that. So what I need to do is to line up where I want my pattern to be on this sheet alongside the stencil. Now I'm going to get the embossing folder here. What I quite like to do is have things off-centered. It gives you that off the look page, and it makes it, I don't know, it just gives a really nice look. And if you can off-center it when you stencil it, it makes it easier because you don't always want to cut into your design afterwards. What I'm going to do, I am going to work out where I want to position this. I'm going to, which way around this? I'm going to put the embossing folder over the first of these stencils, because that will give me an idea of the entire design, because you can see that on the embossing folder. Okay, you can line it up to the areas that are on the stencil, so you can get a good idea. The circles to fit onto the peg system are 3. Now what I want to do is sort of just position, and because we're working with, you know, the sort of semi-opaque materials, we can see when I put the cardstock underneath where that is. So it does make it easy to line up, and it gives you a sense of sort of where the design should be. Now I want to off center this, but when I come to emboss, I don't want the piece to be outside of the embossing folder, because that would leave a line, a demarcation line, as well as embossing the design itself, which I don't want. So I want to keep this matte layer within the embossing folder as much as I can. I want to have the slightly off the edge look, so I'm just going to position that just slightly. Yeah, I should do that like that, I think. Yeah. So that's a good way to line it up. Now, so I'm holding all 3 layers together. Now I want to secure the stencil onto the pegs. Now, obviously, the optimum is to put it onto all the pegs. But if my layer that I'm stenciling onto is sort of slightly hanging off the edge, you can shift up and not use all of the pegs. You still got that fair bit of motion, and that is still going to keep that solid on your ultimate for you, allowing you to sort of remove the stencils and line things up. But the way that I've lined this up today, or this time round, my layer is sitting quite nicely on the magnetic mat within the frame of the ultimate, so I can take my embossing folder away, because I've got a good sort of clear picture of where my design is going to be. And you can see now that some of the design is hanging off of the edge of the mat there, but that's not a worry. I can use my magnets to hold this in place, or you could be using your tacky mat as well. That would work in exactly the same way. So what I'm going to do is start stenciling. Now I'm only using 3 colours today, so I've put the colours up there for you. What I wanted to do is use slightly different colours, because the sets that Lisa has given us, we all know how to use the pinks and the yellows and the greens, but there are a couple of colours in there that you may be a little bit unsure on how to use. So I wanted to use them today just to give you the confidence to use them, show you how they can work. And also I want to use the Pina Colada and Juicy Pineapple together. We usually use one or the other, clearly, because they're both yellow, but I wanted to use both today, just show you that they can be layered together and that they give you 2 different looks as well. I'm also using Tranquil Waters, so let's start from the beginning. So I've got the Tourmaline Blue Tranquil Waters, which will be the foliage today, so I'm going a little bit off-piste, and then the blooms will be in the Pina Colada and the Juicy Pineapple. So really what my thinking was to actually give you a reason to use these other colours, which you, if you purchased them as a whole set together, whether you bought volumes 1, 2 or 3 of the matte blending inks, there will be colours in there which I'm sure that you're not using as much as others. So I'm starting with the Tourmaline blue, and now this looks grey, and depending on other colours that you use this, it will turn out grey, but it is actually a really beautiful colour. And if I show you this here, particularly on the screen, it does give you that sort of grey, greeny tinge. You say it depends on what you mix it with, but it will be, you know, if I can give you the confidence or the opportunity to use this, then yeah, then I'd be really happy, because it is a lovely colour. And when you use a neutral, I would consider this like a neutral, particularly the way I'm using it. It really makes your colours, like your yellows, really pop. So I'm using a stencil brush, and I take off the majority of the ink, as I always do, and before I come into the stencil, and I'm blending that in. I'm making sure that, because this is the floral stencil, I'm the inside of the leaves where they're going to be closer to the blooms. Where are we? What part are we stenciling? We are stenciling this bit here. So what I want to do is make sure that the part of the leaves that are closest to the flowers are darker. So you'll see on these 3 leaves here that I'm going to put the majority of ink onto the bottom of the leaves, and then the natural progression as the ink sort of softens gives you that ombre look as you sort of blend out towards your aperture. So if I make sure that I put more ink on this area here, as it then fades out to, say, the outer edge of the leaf, you get that lovely blended look without too much of an issue. Now, you could just go absolutely solid and give the whole of that aperture a completely solid look. You know, it's all up to you at the end of the day, isn't it? It's that look that you like to see. I like to blend it this way, but then the past couple of weeks I've gone really bold with my stenciling, and I've really made sure I've put lots of colour in. So I'm going to take that away. You can see now that although it's looking sort of, actually looks blue on the screen, to be fair, it has more, it does have that bluey tinge to it. So I'm going to come in with the next stencil, stencil 2. Again, this is adding more foliage, so I'm going to do exactly the same again. The areas are a lot smaller this time round, so I'll probably be inclined to put slightly less ink on. But I'm going round and round, majoritively, or most of the time, on the stencil material. And then once I can see that the ink is blending really smoothly, that's when I tip the bristles of the stencil brush into the aperture there, and I get that really nice sort of ombre blended look. Now, before I move this stencil, I'm just going to come in with the largest of the stencil brushes with Tranquil waters. Again, take off a lot of that ink, or just see that it's blending really smoothly on the stencil material, and just come into the edge of those leaves there. I don't want this to be a massive blue look, but as I take the stencil away in a second, it will just give these areas where I've put the Tourmaline blue, the Tranquil waters will just enhance that blueness just that little bit more. Can you see that? If I can, there we are. Yeah, you can see that that's just coming out. Okay, that works really nicely. So stencil number 3 is all the detail within the leaves. Now, again, this is another thing that I like to keep quite subtle, and I do try and keep these details tonal as well. So I will pretty much always stencil these details with the majority of the colour that I can see through the stencil. So if I'd done these leaves in a green, then I would use them in the green. If I'd done this area of the stencil in a blue, then I would do it in a blue. So I do like these details to keep tonal. They do still stand out, as I'll show you in a second when I take that away. I can see them, you probably can't see them. Let me just adjust the brightness of my screen. It's probably just a little bit too bright. It's hard to know what background to use for you to see. There we are. I think that's possibly taken it away. So let me put that a little bit more ink on, just so you can see what it is I'm doing. I don't need to put too much more ink on my stencil brush, to be fair, because these brushes hold a lot of ink. They hold a lot of ink that you won't be able to see. And you know what? I've just moved that. Okay, I should put that back into place. Okay. Now, I was being really clumsy there. I've moved my card, so I've just gone back to stencil number 1, just so as I can line up, because that's the largest area that I've stenciled so far. So I should do that, and possibly I should put the second magnet on there. There we are. All lined up again. No worries. Right, stencil number 4, we're coming into sort of the stems. So again, I will use the Tourmaline blue. It's a very subtle blue, it really is, and you could be forgiven in some areas that it looks very similar to the anthracite, but actually it might be something I can do another day, actually use them both just so I can sort of show the difference in the two colours. But this, say, really does have the blue undertones, and depending on the colours that you use around it, they really sort of jump out. So I'm putting the stem work in there. I'm just going to lift that up a little bit for you, just so as you can see. There you go. Now you can see on screen that using those colours for the foliage isn't wildly out there, is it? It may seem quite odd to start with, but it does work. I think it works really well. And it's nice for you to be able to see that, because if you don't necessarily think about doing that yourself, once you've seen somebody do it, hopefully it'll give you the opportunity to think, oh yeah, I'm going to give that a try if you have those colours. So now I'm coming in with stencil 5, and this is Pina Colada. So this is where we can start adding the colour of the flowers, and say yellow was real my thing yesterday. Could be because the sun was out as well. So I'm adding the majority of the colour at the base of the flower, which we know it's the base because it's joined to the stem. And if you always refer back to the stencil packaging, it gives you the whole image. So that really does sort of give you the overview. Because it can be quite disjointing sometimes just working with the stencil. Now, with that in mind, because this is the underside of the flower, it sort of follows that this flower sit in the same way. So this bottom area will be the base of the flower. So again, I'm adding more ink there. And just using what is left on my brush just to fill in the rest of the aperture there. And I shall do the same to this flower. Now this is a really lovely stencil because it has a couple of different flowers in here, different flower types, a couple of rosebuds, so you can make it look really summery. And I should probably use this again on Thursday, actually. You have me twice this week, if that's okay with you. So I shall use this in a completely different way with different colours on Thursday. So you can see now that is such a beautiful colour. That yellow really jumps out at you against the tourmaline blue of those leaves. So stencil 5, we are adding the other flowers in. Now again, I've chosen to stick with the same colour, but Say this could be pink, you could go orange, it's entirely up to you. Now what I did want to do is give these flowers a little bit of shading. Initially I thought I wanted to go with white flowers, so what I done, I used the smallest stencil brush and some Tourmaline blue, and what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sort of take quite a lot of ink, and these daisy-like flowers, I'm just going to sort of work into the middle of that stencil. So I'm not going to do any blending, but can you see what I'm doing there? I really might just zoom you in a little bit more. Yes, there you are. So you can see this middle of the flower there. Okay, so all I'm doing, I'm not blending. I'm just making sure that the ink is distributed well on my brush, on the stencil material, and I'm just sort of dabbing that into the centre of that flower. And then what I'll do, I'm going to come and dip in to the edges of these flowers. And because the shape, the slanted shape of this brush, it gives you that control. I'm working onto the stencil material, and then I'm just pushing that ink right just into the tips of those flower petals. I'm not working into the whole aperture at all, because what I'm doing, you have colour here and you have colour here. So your eye is naturally going to fill in the rest of that shape and give you the illusion that the colour is there. That is how you create a white flower. I have done a video on this before with it was a stamped flower actually. It's quite a while ago. You might have to look that up, but it is on there. It shows, I think I titled it How to Colour a White Flower. So I'm going to do that with all of these areas here. It's a really nice subtle way. It's a nice way to use this sort of colour. It's a nice way to use the anthracite ink as well. So all I'm doing, just even on these buds here, I'm just pushing that ink just over the edge of that stencil material, and I'm just going to pounce where that detail is across that bud. But I'm leaving the majority of that white, and I'm going to do exactly the same here. It's actually really quite satisfying, and what it will do, it will teach you to and sort of give you the opportunity to learn how to hone your brush skills as well. Because, let's say, I'm making the most of that slanted, you see here, the slanted shape of that brush, and I'm putting the slant right against the stencil material, which means that the brush isn't upright, and I'm just pushing that in. Say it's a lot easier than you would imagine, so give it a go. You don't have to do it with a dark colour, you can do it with any colours. I quite like to do this with there's a shading sort of technique on stencils as well. So when I take that away, actually let me just, I forgot about the details in this flower here, so I'm just going to pounce along the details there. Okay. You take that away, it does actually give you that illusion of a white flower, and it's incredibly subtle. I think it works so well. So you can do this with shading. If you sort of stencil this in pink and then you've done that technique with a darker pink, it will give you a really nice shaded effect as well. But I think that's how you can actually create a white flower. Okay, so stencil number 7, this is when we can have the detailing on our yellow flowers, and I'm going to come in with Juicy Pineapple here. So this colour is slightly more orangey, I suppose. I would say that the Pina Colada is a lemon yellow, and the Juicy Pineapple, well, it's a pineapple yellow. It's definitely a lot more orange, but they work really nicely together. So I'm bringing in the Juicy Pineapple to bring in the details of these flowers, and again just making sure that the darkest ink is at the base of that flower and here as well. Actually, I'll kind of just put your comments on to see how you're going. Oh, we've got Melinda joined us from Texas. Hello, it's lovely to have you. And Alex and Sue, Susan, Jill. Actually, there's a few names there that I don't recognise, so it's lovely to have you on board. Okay, so now you'll see that there's an awful lot of this stencil that I'm not actually touching as well. Just move that up. But I'm not touching because we are working on a small matten layer, and that is absolutely fine. Okay, so let's take that away. You can see that detail building. Now, these flowers are really quite subtle in the background. If you wanted those to be bolder or to stand out more, you don't have to keep them like that. And I think what I'll do, just for the purpose of this, I'm just going to give my stencil a little clean to the side here. So I've come back to, let's zoom you out again. There we are. So I've come back to stencil number 6, and I've just wiped away the tourmaline, the blue tourmaline that was on there. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to add too much colour. I'm going to use the brush that I've just used for the juicy pineapple, and I'm just going to use that little bit of ink that is left on the brush just to add that touch over that shaded area that I've done before. So when I take that away, those flowers, I'm going to lift that up for you now so you can see. So these are flowers, and now not white, they are yellow, but they do have that shading with the tourmaline blue, and I think that still works really nicely. Okay, so just to finish this off, we have the last stencil, stencil number 8, and this gives you that pop of colour in the centre of the flowers, and I like that to be quite dramatic, so I'm coming in with the blue tourmaline. So that really makes these smaller flowers really pop. So there we have our stenciled layer, and you can see that being off the page already, that just looks so sort of organic and so natural. And when I start layering this onto the layers, the grey with the yellow there really makes that pop. Now, we do have this area here which has been left blank, and you can see that I've added some sort of 3D detail. It's easier to say. Not easy to say. So, I'm all over the place. So, let me put my stencils back into position. So, I'm going to leave those again in a second. Now, to create this detail here, I just had some bits and bobs that's sitting on my desk. I don't know if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, I created some sentiments, and I said you can cut yourself all the different banners from the set that I used. I forgot to pull that out. Okay, bear with me. So yes, I used this set actually. Again, this is a festive one. There is a non-festive version, but what I was interested in this is not the sentiments in itself, but the die that came with it. And die, you can see here, gives you the chance to cut out all the different banners that the sentiments can be stamped onto. Now, I only needed one at the time in the project that I was doing at the time, but because this is one big die, it cuts them all out, and you can store these away in the envelope, or they sit on your desk. And I've had these sitting on my desk since I've done that live, and that's possibly like 5-6 weeks ago. So I thought, what can I do? What can I use them for? Because I thought, I suppose I could throw them away, but then I went to the effort of die cutting them. So what I thought I'd do, I'd fill in this little gap here. So I've just started layering them to fill that area here. Now, if you don't have these dies, or you don't have anything like this, you could perhaps use, if you have it of course, the stone wall embossing folder. I think we have a brick wall embossing folder. You could do exactly the same with that, and you could cut a shape. You could follow the line of the bricks and cut a staggered shape that way. That would work. If you don't have anything like that, this is where you can perhaps use the bow from the Festive Slimline set that I showed at the beginning. You could use the bow just to fill that shape or fill that space in the middle. Actually, looking at that, the grey and the yellow would work as well. So that's entirely up to you. You can say the bow would work really nicely there, and you could put your centre across. But I'll show you how I've done this. So I'm layering these up. You can do them straight, you can do them staggered, you can add more, you can add less. It depends on the space that you have. I quite like a little bit of white space, but sometimes you need something just to fill it, but something subtle. So I'm going to use 4 layered like that. And I've taken myself a piece of washi tape because what I want to do is stencil onto those as I have done here. Now, obviously, we don't want to stencil on each one of these individually. That would not be the best use of your time. So I know I'm using those 4. I'm just going to get a piece of washi tape. I've just put this upside down because I don't want to stick this to the layer at this stage. Just putting that there, and then I want to use the washi tape to actually stick these layers together. So now, with that washi tape in the back, I can then start stacking these and attaching them all at the same time. Okay, you can see that now when I turn this over, I can now move these as a unit. I'm going to turn that over and I'm going to make that more secure by adding another piece of washi tape and just making sure that they are all attached nicely. So we have a nice section like so. Now what I want to do, you don't have to, again, you could use coloured cardstock if you wanted, but I want to stencil, again, the same image that I've used here. So I'm going to bring in my stencils. Now I'm going to do this really quick this time round, and I want to just get an idea of where the design is. So I'm bringing the embossing folder in again. So we want, again, this to go off the page, and I can see my staggered banners underneath. And I'm just getting an idea of where the design is going, as to where I can sit my banners. And I'm going to leave them there, secure them in place with the magnet. Now, it is only going to be a tiny area that I'm going to stencil onto this, but I can now stencil using exactly the same colours onto this area here. And I'm going to whiz through this quite quick because I'm going to use exactly the same colour scheme, but obviously I'm only using a fraction of the stencils this time round. So it does make this an awful lot quicker. Now it would be quite nice to do this perhaps a little bit paler, but again, that's entirely up to you. Again, if you don't want to add this detail, you can add stenciling directly onto this layer in exactly the same way you did here. So you can use your stencils and reposition this layer underneath and stencil straight onto this piece here. So many different opportunities, but I'd like to show you just something a little bit different, if I possibly can. So I'll come in with the Pina Colada. So only one flower to stencil on this. So it's super, super quick. I still use all the same techniques. So you see stencil number 6, and I will use the little shading technique as I did before because I quite like that. That worked really nicely. I perhaps won't go so heavy because I want this to be the main image. So we've got that little suggestion that this may be a paler flower. I'm just coming in round the edge and the same there. So it's a little bit of shading. Now before I come in with the yellow here, I'm just going to give the stencil a little white, because obviously that tourmaline is a lot darker than the yellow, and it will just contaminate my brush a little bit. Yes, Hazel's agreeing with me. So I'm going to come in with a tiny bit of yellow there, not too much, so I don't want that overpowering. But that tourmaline underneath just gives that yellow a little bit of shading. So now this is the flower with the main yellow colour on it there. So we can stencil that in. And yeah, we still have two little areas here. So do those little darker areas here, like so. See, that's an awful lot quicker because we're stenciling a much smaller area. So we have a really nice little detail there, which we can sit that onto the side. And I think it just gives a, I don't know, just lifts it a little bit, doesn't it? Just gives you a little bit of something. So before I do that, I'm going to emboss this. Oh, yeah, I will emboss it. So, as I say, what we need to do is line up the embossing. Now, obviously, we don't have the whole design to be embossed, but that's fine. We line that up. We've still got our layer within the embossing folder, so we're not going to get any rogue extra emboss lines down the centre. And what we do need to just make sure is that we have the bottom hanging off the base of the cutting mat. So what I would do, I would line this up. So I'd line up the bottom of the embossing folder with the bottom of the plate, so this part isn't embossed either. So there we won't end up with a rogue embossed line here. We will only be embossing our design. Now I think it's a really nice design if you didn't want to or you wasn't confident just in embossing a small little area, you could just leave this stencil because it's so pretty. Now we've embossed that, now we can begin to assemble the card. So we want to attach our sort of attached banners onto the card like so. And I think what we'll do, we'll just position this and turn it over, and I'm just going to draw a line where the banners will be cut, and also it will serve as a reminder as to where to add the glue. So I'm going to attach this first, and then I'm going to trim them to size afterwards. So we don't want to go past that drawn pencil line there. So we can attach that back on to the card. I think it just fills that space nicely, doesn't it? So there are lots of different ways you could do this. You could quite easily add the bow, and I think that would work even, that would work really nice. That would actually work up there as well. Again, each of us creates in a different way, so it's up to us sort of as a design team just to give you different ideas. I find it very tricky to replicate a card. So if I can just give you a starting point and then you can run off with a design, and who knows where you'll finish with it. You know, it'll look completely different, and that is the whole, the joy of what we do, isn't it? So we have our layer sitting there. We have a really nice sort of little design feature there, which works just as well with this. It's not embossed. You could emboss it. That would work also. I don't feel that it necessarily needs to. Then when we start building this up onto the card and putting this onto a dark matte and layer, I think that's when the colours really start sort of coming out and you start seeing all those little extra details. So add this on. And so we've gone from using an A6 design and we've worked onto a really slimline layer here. I mean, not this section here that we've stenciled onto isn't even DL. I mean, it's all mounting with the matte layers onto a DL card, but we've actually stenciled onto quite a small layer there. But you'd never know. You'd never know. And all I'm doing is just matting and layering up as I go. Just to build that card. Now, again, you've got the choice of all of the sentiments that you have in your stash, and we have stickers, which would be ideal to put on. There'd be a nice quick and simple solution also. We have die cuts, large and small. We have stamps, any, for all occasions. You know, we can create pretty much any type of card that we want, or any sort of message, can't we? But what I want to do, just to show you how we can stamp with these sentiment strips. They are so easy to use. Use a stamping platform, and what I'm going to do actually is use the matte blending inks. We do have the pigment inks, which are brilliant for stamping, but obviously we do have pigment inks for the juicy pineapple, I believe, that would work with this, but I want to stamp in a darker colour. I want to stamp with this tourmaline blue to keep this all in keeping. So I'm going to use the happy birthday, and I've already taken that off. I've got my piece of cardstock in here. I'm stamping towards the lower half of the ultimate, because I know that the pegs won't get in the way. The ultimate one, obviously, with the stamping platform is magnetic in itself, so you don't need to use the magnetic mat for that. So I can use my magnets off of the other ultimate two. So I've put my stamp where I want on my cardstock. I'm going to pick my stamp up. There we are. I'm just going to make sure that the magnets are a bit small further down. So what I'm going to do, I'm using the tourmaline blue, the matte blending ink. I'm going to ink. Oh, you can't quite see that. Let's move this on. There we are. So I'm going to ink my stamp. I'm not going overboard with the ink to start with. So I'm just going to get a nice even coverage on my stamp there and just stamp this down. I'm just going to give it a firm-ish print. And my first impression is not going to be perfect. I expected that's fine. But we're using a stamping platform, so we can go in as many times as we want. So I'm going to ink my stamp again. And I'm going to stamp again. This time just concentrating the pressure on the area of the stamp that didn't stamp so well last time. And you can see now that the ink and the image is building. I'll come in a little bit again so you can see that. There we are. So it will probably take one more. So I'm going to add ink again. Come in and stamp one more time. And just press again in the area that the ink isn't necessarily going to as easy. And I'm not pressing really hard. You can see that I'm just using one finger for this. If I press too much, you will distort the image and the writing inside. And also when you ink your stamp, don't really push the ink in, just really, really light taps, and you won't flood those letters that are in the centre there. You can see now that we have a really lovely impression stamped, and that is stamped with the matte blending ink, the tourmaline blue. Now we don't have dies for these, but these stamps are so small and so easy to cut out these images that we can just take your favourite pair of scissors. Be careful that you don't smudge the ink, so make sure that it is fully dried. before you handle it. And I'm just cutting along the solid line that the ink has produced for us. That I find is the easiest way to work with these images. Okay, I'll leave that there. You can see perfect image, and that can then go on our card like so, and you can see that that is a perfectly plausible sentiment to put on there. And it's all very understated. Now, if you wanted to use something a bit bolder and you wanted to use the dies, I've chosen these ones. I've already die cut them from the grey. You can always add something on along those lines, or you could use something smaller. Thank you would be nice. You could perhaps pop that on there. That would work really well, or along the side. Again, there's just so many different ways you can do this. Just a note, that would work really nicely, wouldn't it? As well. And that would sit really nicely that way too. So there's lots of different ways you can use this. So hopefully, was it Bonnie who said that she has this set but hasn't used it yet? So hopefully there I've given you a couple of ideas. Now there is another set, and it's a card that Valerie made and put into the group, I noticed just before the live. It was called, is it Posy of Roses? It's very similar to this set here. And if you wanted to give this style a try, you would get exactly the same look with that design also. It's called the Posy of Roses. I believe it is also A6. The code for that is L8CEF 088. That's for the embossing folder. So it might be worth just giving that a look as well. But Valerie's used completely different colours on that, so it would give you a completely different look. So hopefully I've given you some inspiration. Oh, good. Yeah, it's a really nice summary card for you all. You're not good at cutting, are you? Oh, Sue. I think these are really, really forgiving. Either that or you can use a trimmer. But these are so forgiving. You just follow the line of that solid sentiment there, or you can leave a white border as well. And I'm pretty sure you can use either these banners, the ones that I cut out earlier on. You can use these to stamp straight onto. Then you wouldn't need to do any cutting. Or there are some little dies, little rectangle dies, which I think would possibly cut some of these out perfectly as well. So see what you've got in your stash. Yeah, so thanks for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope I've given you a little bit of inspiration to go and pull out the floral vine if you haven't used it already. I should be with you back on Thursday using the same again, I think, just to give you a completely different idea. So if this isn't your cup of tea, then hopefully I can come up with something else that might inspire you. So have a lovely afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining me today, and I shall see you again on Thursday. Take care.